come from is Guyanese. To our fellow friends in the Caribbean, especially our viewers in Jamaica and further afield, we continue to thank you for your viewership week after week for being with us. And we pray that this evening program will be a blessing to you. So we welcome you. Good evening, and stay tuned as we continue this program.
This evening, as we discuss this very important topic of fatherhood, I want to begin by saying that in Genesis 2:24, it is stated clearly that for this reason shall a man leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. Powerful words. Leave. If one is going to be successful as a father, one has to think about leaving. Leaving the home so you could expand and so you could develop. Cleave. You have to cleave to your wife. Meaning that you cannot have several wives. This is how God created it. Leave, cleave, and become one flesh. Ownership in the family. Now it is said that the family is the most basic unit of society, and within that context, God set up man to be the head of the family. And there's a reason for that. Man set up his head so that there could be order in the family. And therefore we cannot overemphasize the importance and the significance of the role of the man. The man serves as provider. He provides for his family. The man serves as protector. He watches over. He serves as a teacher. He teaches. He serves as a motivator, one who brings the family into order so that the family could progress. And when this covering is removed, many times the family is exposed and left to all the vagaries of life. And therefore, the role of the man is pivotal if families are going to progress and families are going to be successful. So we want to discuss fatherhood. Gentlemen.
Well, the set is not really one that our viewers are familiar with in the first place. And we are actually bringing this program from the impeccable banquet hall in Brickdown, you know, the same street that hosts the Independence Arch that was dramatically transformed several weeks ago. And the subject, while we discuss manhood generally, their focus is on my father, my friend. And we want to join this conversation. It is a massive conversation, my father, my friend. Fatherhood is facing tremendous peril in the 21st century, even as we meet. You alluded to Genesis, when the whole notion of the father and his responsibilities were introduced. But when we come to the end of that same covenant, testament, constitution that is called the Old Testament, when we come to the end of that constitution, we come face to face with a major dilemma. The dilemma is the final prophet is perplexed, he's disturbed, and like we heard a young social commentator early on, and we heard a mature commentator later on in this program emphasize from different angles the value and the importance of fatherhood. Similarly, that social commentator, that prophet, made the observation that towards the end of the age, the Creator himself will have to turn the hearts of the fathers to their children and turn the hearts of children to their fathers, which is the recognition of some serious problems in between. We are witnessing, as we are, the whole role of fatherhood, the importance of fatherhood, not only being misunderstood, but being undermined in our world. And I can very well see why that prophetic utterance will play a significant role and become a reality, because of how the role of the father, whether it's a design role or it's just carelessness, that role of the father, as we know it, the traditional role of moral arbiter, disciplinarian, motivator, as you alluded to, friend, brother, husband, that priest, intercessor, as we heard, the one who leaves an inheritance. This is not in financial terms only. It is not limited to material and financial terms only, but it carries on leaving a legacy in the children, not for them. And so this is an exciting time to be alive.
I am extremely grateful that I have the privilege to know one of the greatest father, my father, Hector Archibald McDonald Lee, son of Buxton. And I'm happy that he instilled some great values in me. The importance of education being the hatch or the doorway out of poverty. And not only education for me, but I am particularly pleased with the time that he spent in Buxton and, well, in the Essequibo and Berbice where he taught, that he found time above and beyond the normal call of duty to teach and to train children the value and the importance of education. Not only that, the value of hard work, integrity, the love for nation, love for country, and the love for each other.
Do you have the village correct?
Yes, the village of Buxton. Well, it's quite, some persons say all manner of bad things about Buxton, but I'm so happy that he was a Buxtonian. And I tell you what, you know, one of the things I remember at his funeral, UC Crianan putting a tribute together said that a child or children may fall through the crack, but parents, you should never feel worried or feel bothered about it, because Hector, in a short while, is going to bring them out to the crack. And I think that's a great contribution that my father made to this nation.
I am a son that is very proud of my father. My father was a tin-built man like me, but he was a great man. He was blessed by God. He was no Christian, but I want to tell you, God blessed him with riches that God says children are in inheritance of the Lord. My father had 14 children with one woman. 14. I am number 8. There are 6 after me. And I am proud of him. My father was no big educated man, but the principles that he put in us, when you sit and you think back about my father, he had to be a gift from God. I used to say my father was poor, but now that I have grown, I have seen the riches that my father had. He had his 14 children. He used to work with the government. He used to plant his rice. He used to rear his cattle. He used to plant his farm. He never went to any ministry for any social assistance for any one of us. And he bring us through. My father is dead. May his soul rest in peace. But I want to say to you, when I started to work, my father came to me and he said, son, I don't want anything you're working for. What you want to give, give your mother, but you save the rest. And I said to my pastor in the congregation this morning, I made a comparison to my father and to me at this age. My father was blessed with a donkey cart, which the family still has now. I am blessed with a RAV4. My father was blessed with a 2-bedroom house. Because of the principle that he instilled in us, I am blessed with a 5-bedroom house. So when I think about my father, you know, he did not abandon any of us. You know, parents got 2 and 3 children today, and they fed up, they run, and they left them. I never heard these words came out of my father's mouth. I am tired of any one of you. My father was there for us. He braces us, and he gets all. Old people say you don't carry all your egg in one basket. My father carried all his eggs in one basket. And I want to tell you, all the eggs were fruitful, not wasn't gander. They all come out good. And I thank God that out of the 14, all are alive today. God bless his soul.
You know, if I can follow up on my brother, the scripture says a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children, not just his children, but their children too. And even as I reflect on my own father, and sometimes you not inherit gold and diamond and silver, but values and attitudes and the kinds of behaviors that you need to demonstrate if you're going to progress. So before I leave for school every day, my father uttered these words. I remember these words some 35, 36 years ago. You know, he said, learn as much as you can. Stay away from bad company. Walk on the right-hand side of the road. My father spoke to my education. He spoke to my social development as a social being, the kinds of people I should keep. And he also spoke to the preservation of my life by telling me how to use the road. And so I really love this gentleman and how he actually taught me. Actually, what he did also, every night he came home from work, by the way, he was a carpenter.
I thought you were a sociologist.
No, I am. But he was a simple carpenter. And when he came home at night, he said, you know what? Every time I come home, I want you to go to the dictionary. You must learn 3 words. Tell me the meanings of these words and make a sentence with those words. And this was what I had to do every night. And today, I believe, you know, I have words at my disposal because of my father.
You mean to say that your father was a teacher? He took his responsibility to ensure that you were gifted with words that could help you to educate others? That's what you say?
You know, he was a carpenter.
A carpenter. But he also taught.
Yes.
So a carpenter can teach. A father is a teacher. The scripture teaches us from Proverbs chapter 4, this man, Solomon, hearing something from his father. His father told him, hear, ye children, the instructions of a father, and intend to know understanding. For I give you good doctrine. Forsake ye not my law. For I was my father's son, tender and only beloved in the sight of my mother. He taught me also, and said unto me, let thine heart retain my words. A father has the responsibility to teach his children the words of wisdom from God.
You know, we heard in the address read by a colleague of the ministers, she made an observation. She described fathers as agents of change,
Yes.
which is one of the most powerful concepts and descriptions of fathers. And notwithstanding the fact of one's social standing, you know, your father was a carpenter. He understood that he was an agent of change. I believe whether he was familiar with those words, he was determined that his son would break the ceiling. His son from East Renville, Warlock, or as we used to call it, Warlock. Yeah, I think that's what it used to be called. Warlock, something like that. His son would be different, and his son was different. He was passionate. Lots of men in the 21st century like to refer to this whole notion of fatherhood, saying that the father is the head of the family. I have no trouble with that. But I believe a more functional role of the father is the foundation.
Amen.
I posit, I'm in agreement with the scriptural injunction, but functionally, we have to raise our young men and our fathers to think more of their role being foundational. For example, we heard in one of the plays or one of the dramatic pieces early on, the question, or someone was making a statement repeatedly about the father being the chief breadwinner. That was then. The reality today is, while some men are bringing home the bacon, the woman they're married to is bringing home the pig. Now, how would that man function if his primary role is that of a provider? And that's why some men are so confused, they become depressed. And then they act out this depression in terms of violence and anger towards their wife, who loves him. But she is, because she might have grown with her father, and because of a set of different circumstances, might have done better professionally. And so there are men who are scared of getting married to women who are developed, but this situation about the empowerment of women is not going to change. So what we need to do is to broaden the horizon of men to understand that our role, the father's role, is not exclusively that of being the breadwinner, and once he understands he has to work, there's no question about that. He has to work, and once he recognizes this, it will go a long way for him to lay the foundation, not only to launch his wife, but their children. And that man will be the foundation for the success of that family.
You see an important role of the father. The father sets his family's course. When you think of children, very often, we heard earlier, somebody made the comment that sometimes we, as parents, idle words are said to children. You will amount to nothing. And all of these things people just say casually, but they don't realize the impact it can have on a child. Now, as I reflect on my father, I often tell the story of the fact that even before I started nursery school, my father set my course. He didn't say, I would like you to do this. He told me, he said, you will go to Stella Maris Nursery, you will go to Stella Maris Primary, and then you'll go to Queen's College, and then after that, you'll get a scholarship. And he gave me some role models like Fred Wills and LFS Burnham. And you know what? All of those things happened. And as I was growing up, I would say to my friends in school, oh, I'm going to Queen's College. Now, some people may say, oh, that was arrogance. It wasn't arrogance. It was because Daddy told me that. And because Daddy said it, it meant that it was going to happen, because Daddy was the man who I looked up to. And not only did Daddy say that, Daddy ensured that he followed it up carefully. He engaged me in conversations. He spent time with me. He was always home on time. If he had to work late, he ensured that Mommy would have filled the gap, but then he ensured that homework was done. He found out what I liked, and he engaged me. A lot of times, persons like to keep children quiet. But the interaction I had with my father was one, as we talked, my father, my friend, he was also my friend. As a matter of fact, his colleagues at work used to find it very interesting the level of conversation I could have had at such a tender age, because perhaps at 7 I'm having a conversation with a 13-year-old. That's because my father exposed me. And he taught me the whole concept of responsibility, morality. And therefore, when I went off on that scholarship, at the age of 18, I was in a new country, 4 years I had to spend there. He didn't have to worry, because he had taught me well. And because of that, he could have been sure that socially, morally, financially, I would have been a responsible person. And that's why I'm grateful to him. And even to this day, he's still alive and he's still looking out for my welfare.
Gentlemen, I want to throw a cap among the pigeons. My father, I didn't benefit. I'm grateful for his sperm contribution. But personally, I didn't benefit from my father's instruction like Solomon benefited from his father's instruction, like you benefited the others. My mother raised me, and I think there's a place, while we speak of the importance of the male man, there are women who have this unenviable task of raising sons. It is not an easy job, but I believe she did a good job. But even after her work was complete, there was a vacuum in me that only a man could have shortened and fashioned and shaped. That's the way how God made the male, to be mentored, to be fashioned by a father. And so we are appealing that you take your responsibility, like your dad. I took my son I became his GPS early on, and I took him like your dad for a drive, and I showed him the high school that he was going to attend. And then I said, we're going to go on the East Coast. I'm not too sure you need to go to this university. I want you to recognize, he was 7 years old, He's looking at me like if I'm talking a Nancy story. I said to him, your competitor is a little boy in China, a little girl from Japan, a little boy from Indonesia, and that is your competitor. And he said, what? Well, here he is in China as a 19-year-old. Here he is in Washington studying. And he says, Dad, when I looked and I saw my classmates, I remembered your words. A father is a GPS. You know, we could fashion our children, but you got to be sober.
I am so privileged, and I think it's an awesome task to be a father. It's an awesome responsibility that God has given to every father to raise their children in the fear of God and to point them in the right direction that they should go. I lived in a home where I was the only boy, and it wasn't my father. I don't know my father, but I knew a man who was my stepfather, and I called him Dad because he was very responsible. He taught me how to work. He worked. I knew him working. All his life he would work, and he would bring home that money to my mother. Sometimes she goes to the workplace and she draws the money. I don't know if she gave him anything, but I know she went there and she collected. And he was a very contented man, you know, very contented, and he was committed. It didn't pull him down because she did that. He understood his role, and he taught me how to work hard, because if I needed anything, I had to work hard to develop myself. And he also taught me another thing, how to stay in a marriage. He was married to my mom for 52 years. She's dead now, and I'm married now for 36 years to the same woman. And you know, if he hadn't taught me that, I would have gone astray, because I had other influences that said to me, you don't need to stick with one fish because there are several fishes in the sea. But I determined in my heart that this woman that I found over 40 years ago on Aubrey Barker Street, we were reflecting the other day, on Aubrey Barker Street with a hockey stick in her hand. She had a space. She had a space heat. I remembered all of that and we were talking about it. Still love her unto this day. Have children unto this day. We're raising our children. They're all big, but we enjoy life together. It is because of the impact of this same man who didn't see me as a bastard and outsider, but he understood that he was raising a family. And even though I was not his child, he put all that he had into it to raise me up to be the man I am today.
I want to really commend that man. I think I knew him somewhat. But the reality in the 21st century is that we don't find such men. We hardly find such men taking on the role not only of being a father to their own biological children, but fathering other people's children. And so the challenge to the men out there, I mean, there were so many examples given this evening about good men. The reality in the 21st century is that we have so many men that who are not in place, and we want to call them back to this place where they can indeed become some form of inspiration to their children, to their families, and the society at large. I recall my dad. He wasn't all of that bad. I could recall my dad. We had this little grocery shop. And my dad would take us to school on his rally bicycle. He would come around school at lunch hours to check to ensure that we were there. Nevertheless, he fell short. But I want to thank God for those mothers who has an unending task of being both mom and dad to their sons and their daughters. My mom stood there for us. And today I can testify to the fact that because she filled that gap, she could not play the role of a father in my life, but because she was there for us, I am who I am today.
As I reflect on this team that you set yourself, my father, my friend, I think about my own father, who is still married to my mother, and they would have celebrated 53 years just a couple months ago. I remember times ramping with him, and it's very necessary for us as fathers to bond with our children. For mothers,
it's natural to bond because of you got to feed your child. So bonding happens almost automatically. But you see, with fathers, you got to be there for your children. I remember romping with him one time, and he got so caught up in the moment that I said a few words to him in friendly banter back and forth. Daddy, you lied. You know, I thought this was a real friendly moment. And right there, right at that spot, some words came, some instructions came. So even as I reflect on this theme, my father, my friend, we can't be too familiar with our father. Bond, yes, but don't be too familiar to the point where you might want to take your eyes and pass daddy. Because at the end of the day, you still need to be able to receive instruction. So I'm thankful for my father who would have been there, and this event happened when I was like about 7, 8 or thereabout. That principle would have taken me throughout life up to this stage, and I'm really grateful for that.
Like it or not, every home needs a father. There's no perfect environment. And so some of us may worry about where we start and how we start. It's not so much how you start, I will say. Make sure you finish well.
Which is a critical role men have to play. Society really has not been very kind to men and fathers. Some of them have to leave their homes to earn a living far away from where the children are being raised. Some have to travel overseas. Some fall in the cracks and there's no one to help them. There are enough institutions, I believe, around this country, particularly churches and temples and mosques, where moral education is taught, where principles for living are taught. And I really want to encourage men, stop being strangers to these houses of instruction. Come in and you might very well rediscover or discover the instructions how to be not just a man, but a father. That's a wrap. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for being part of Choices. Remember, you can join us at First Assembly for any of our regular weekly services. I'm Salisha on behalf of the set reminding you that your whole life is the